What is up guys, Rick Hackus here, and today we're reviewing the Suros DIS-47 Scout Rifle. Now this Scout Rifle is randomly inserted into the loot table, so you can acquire this Scout Rifle from any random lootable source, like at the end of a Nightfall or from an engram. Now you can also acquire this weapon from the Gunsmith depending on what weapons he is selling for the week. Now let's start off this review by going over this weapon's stats. Now right away, the most unique thing about this weapon is its rate of fire and impact. The Suros DIS-47 is one of only two Year 2 Scout Rifles that have the faster rate of fire damage profile for Scout Rifles. The Inward Lamp Trials of Osiris Scout Rifle is again the only other Scout Rifle that has this same rate of fire and impact for Year 2 so far. Now moving on, the other stats of this weapon are fairly average. Range is acceptable, stability is decent, reload is decent, and magazine size is pretty good at 20. Nothing really stands out miraculously in terms of range or stability or anything like that. And as such, how good your version of the Suros DIS-47 is depends more on your role. Speaking of role, let's move on to the perks of the DIS-47. Now you can see the perks that I have on my version in the background, but the perks I would recommend you guys looking out for are definitely stability increases first and foremost. This gun does bounce around quite a bit, and since it has a higher rate of fire, you really do want a higher stability to compensate. So definitely look for those stability increasing perks. As for other perks, full auto goes very well with this version of a Scout Rifle, making it almost like an assault rifle, and other perks that go well with this weapon is going to be something like counterbalance to again help with that recoil. Now this particular Scout Rifle, however, is pretty open in the amount of different perks it can go well with. Although full auto is definitely going to be my most desired perk that I'm looking for, and definitely stability increases are also extremely important, aside from that, this can do well with a variety of different perks. One-man army, even last resort, can still function very well as long as you rein in that stability. Now let's move on to this gun's performance in PvE. Well, in PvE, I think this is a completely acceptable weapon. Every time I test one of these weapons, I always forget basically that these can actually still get one-shot headshots against lower tier enemies like Acolytes, which is fantastic considering other Scout Rifles also get one-shot headshots, but they shoot nowhere near as fast. And while I think this weapon is perfectly acceptable if you want to use it in PvE, this weapon, the Suros DIS-47, doesn't bring as much to the table that would warrant replacing something like the Raid Scout Rifle. If you have a Raid Scout Rifle, having that Cocoon perk is probably just going to be better than what the Suros DIS-47 can offer. With that being said, I think that players who would want to utilize this in PvE are going to be newer players that have a little bit of a harder time controlling recoil, and getting a bunch of headshots non-stop with a Scout Rifle on moving targets just isn't really an option for them. Again, maybe they're newer to the game, maybe they don't really play video games as much and they have a hard time doing that, in which case the Suros DIS-47 is perfect for them. Those players tend to kind of drift towards using auto rifles because they're quite forgiving. Well, they might have armor that gives Scout Rifle bonuses like more Scout Rifle ammo, faster reloads with Scout Rifles, etc. And in that case, they can definitely utilize this weapon because this is the most forgiving of the Scout Rifles because of that larger magazine size and high rate of fire, so that if you drift off target, if you don't get a couple of headshots, you can easily drift back onto target and finish off your enemy. But again, for the majority of players, the Raid Scout Rifle is probably just going to be better, not only because of that Cocoon perk, but also because it spawns with a very high light as well. In fact, the Inward Lamp, since it's so similar to this weapon, and since it spawns with a very high light, especially if you get the Adept version, is probably just going to be a better choice in PvE as well. Now, how did this weapon perform in PvP? Well, first off, this weapon is capable of getting 45 damage for a headshot and 30 damage for a body shot. So how did I like this weapon? Well, to be completely honest, I really didn't love my time in the Crucible with the Suros DIS-47, and I would mainly contribute that to this gun's lack of stability. I only had one pretty minor increase to stability, and that just wasn't enough, especially since I was pairing this gun with full auto. though. The sights simply bounced around a lot more than I was expecting, and considering how good other people's weapons are, like especially when you're talking about pulse rifles and stuff, you just can't compete at those medium and long ranges because those guys using pulse rifles are just never missing your headshots, and you are. And so again, you really want to be able to rein in that stability. With that being said, I think if you find a version of this weapon with really high stability, if you get like hand laid stock or something, or since it's a Suros weapon, you can actually get that double increase to stability, I would definitely check this weapon out. I think that with an increase to stability to rein in that recoil, this weapon definitely has potential, because what it does have over some of the other weapons is forgiveness. It has a rate of fire that's high enough that if you miss a couple of shots, you can kind of get back on target and reacquire and kill that enemy. Whereas if you're using something like a hand cannon or some of the slower shooting scout rifles or pulse rifles, missing a burst or missing a shot can be devastating in your time to kill, whereas with this weapon, it really isn't as big of a factor. I think this weapon is definitely worth checking out every time you get it. Make sure you don't just delete this weapon, check the roll and see if it's good first, because firstly, it's such a unique weapon. Again, only 2 of these scout rifles exist in terms of this rate of fire and impact in year 2 scout rifles, and since this weapon is actually completely randomized in its perk set, and the base perks are so close to the Inward Lamp Trials of Osiris scout rifle, if you like the Inward Lamp, you can easily get a better version of the Inward Lamp if you get a good roll on the Suros DIS-47, so it's definitely a weapon I would keep my eye out for. Now that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to rate and share this video. It really helps me out. And if you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Now, if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's going to be linked in the description of this video, as is my Twitch channel, which you can follow as well. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.